We talked last week about Summer Games Fest, but E3 is in the news this week. And this one is fascinating because I think most people had written off E3 as basically all but, dead, basically all but irrelevant. And I'm curious if you guys think this changes things. And the headline here is PAX organizer ReedPop is officially taking over E3. It says, will reshape what didn't work. So the veteran events company pledges to create a new benchmark for video game expos. ReedPop, the events company behind PAX, EGX, Star Wars Celebration, and New York Comic Con, will officially take over the running of E3 in 2023. This is confirmed from the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association that essentially owns the E3 brand. And so ReedPop is going to, it says they're going to welcome back, E3 2023 would welcome back publishers, developers, journalists, content creators, manufacturers, buyers, and licensors, and also highlight digital showcases and feature in-person consumer components. So I'm curious what you guys think of E3 coming back with different management, call it, and specifically management that has produced PAX. Jeff?
I hope this works. I mean, I think E3 is a great event, for the industry. I think I went 2 or 3 times in my life when I was an analyst. Like, it's just a great event for people in the space to go, meet one another, and also for consumers to come. And it was always like pretty fun to see the new games, get little trinkets on the floor, walk around, stuff like that. So it's sad that, it went away. I understand from a cost standpoint for some of these publishers, it may not be what it once was, where once upon a time it was like where they would go meet with like retailers and distributors, and that's how they would actually sell their products. Clearly, in this day and age, that's no longer how distribution works. So maybe from a business standpoint, it's a little bit harder for them to justify these massive marketing expenses for what could really just be a digital trailer. Which is essentially what these things are anyway for most people that are watching it. But for folks in the industry, I think it's just a great week where people get out there and get to meet people and see people. So I'm hoping it works. As for the comparison with PAX, I've always enjoyed PAX. We've gone the last couple of years. I don't have any comment on how PAX is run versus how E3 is run. I'm not sure whether this is going to make or break the event from a financial perspective, but I hope it works.
I mean, Hamsalot here makes an interesting comment, which is this just trying to be PAX 2.0? And then the question becomes, and look, I think we're all here big fans of PAX. We've done a live Business of Esports podcast from every PAX in the last, God knows how many years. PAX is, PAX East at least is the most well-attended, I think, conference in the city of Boston the entire year. Very successful from a consumer standpoint. Has an industry component, which I think is interesting. How would you guys, if you're ReedPop here, differentiate E3 from PAX? Right? What would you do different?
I mean, I was gonna throw out a really annoying question and just say, does PAX even know what PAX wants to be? I actually don't know. I've been to a bunch of PAXs. Didn't they had to also kill PAX South, right? Because I think of poor attendance or the
COVID hurt.
COVID also helped kill PAX South. But so I think even PAX struggles with the idea of they have the board game stuff, they have some esports competitions, even they have some publisher stuff, they have some hardware stuff, and it's they have obviously the anime piece and all the cosplay or whatever. It's just if you just want to throw a giant nerd convention, that's super cool, but I don't know. I struggle with PAX. I think doesn't even know what it wants to be. And now, to Hamsalot's comment, it's if you're looking at E3 and you're well, we want to make it PAX 2.0, it's is that, what does that even look like then? Is it just more consumers? Is it you just don't care if you get the publishers anymore? Is there then cosplay? Look, I loved E3 when I was growing up. I thought it was a really easy way to quickly get excited about the upcoming slate of what's coming for the rest of the year. I think when I started in the industry, E3 was the place to go to get business done. And to Jeff's point, like, it was a really great week, and I've had way too many drinks at that stupid hotel bar in the middle of the two places that you just keep walking back and forth. And then I think like shamelessly the worst thing they ever did was they let like non-industry folks into E3. Like
Hmm.
it was already super overcrowded. Like, I think industry and press people like already had like crazy lines, and then they randomly sold 10,000 tickets, I think, that year, to the public. And so yeah, look, I shamelessly, I truthfully don't know anything about the economics, but I would love for them to bring back like a very hardcore industry focused event. Probably like try to woo like Microsoft and PlayStation like back to the table. Maybe you just partner with Summer Games Fest, right? Like, let's maybe not try to have this weird war between two competing conferences at the same time that basically like overlap. Like, just play nice, have like a really hardcore industry event, and like get shit done. Like, that would be the dream, but I have no idea if it'll happen.
Isn't the problem that like fundamentally E3 was about game announcements, right? It was about game
Yeah.
publishers because it's put on by the ESA, right?
Yeah,
Whose
they all pay their
constituency
dues to
that's
ESA.
right, is game publishers, and so it's hard to have a broader industry conference if it's all about just publishers, right? Because then you don't the small services company that does something specific in gaming infrastructure doesn't feel welcome, right? And then if it's just the big publishers or game developers in general, um, not having the gamers there, that has always felt a little weird to me, right? Like announcing the new Diablo to a room full of like suits was always like why, right? Like put the people who are going to play the game in that room and see if they're excited, because that's sort of the barometer of the industry. um Lindsay, I don't know if you have thoughts on this.
Yeah, so well, I totally was going to make that same point, Grant, about how PAX is. I still don't feel as if there's I think there's, well, let me say it this way. I think there's room for an event that focuses more directly on video games, gaming, esports, and the technology that accompanies it, without the anime elements, without the board game elements, without the cosplay elements. Not that those can't be added in by people who attend, but that they're not immediately baked in. I still feel like there's room for that event, particularly in LA, where we know that there's just tons of gaming that's always happening. So I totally agree with Grant on that point. I disagree on having it be an industry focused event. I think it's smart to open it up to the public in this day and age, because I don't think publishers are going to go back to announcing games the same way they have in the past. So I think that's just something that is going to have to be let go, which means that this can't be an announcement focused event. I think that it should be more so about innovation, about tech stuff. To your point, to our points before, we've talked about CES and how CES is like kind of a gaming event. I would like to see so much more of that tech and hardware stuff going in specifically with the intent of gaming, and having that be kind of a focus of an event, and letting consumers come in who are ultimately going to be the ones buying the product, and actually testing, using, exploring what that all means. I wonder how Half-Life Alyx would have done if they were able to go to an event and have like tons of people test it out and try it out on using different hardware, seeing what that's like. So I think that there is room for something like that. And I also wanted to note that I really want E3 to be successful, because it has been such a powerhouse in the past. And in order to do that, I think it is important to have an industry element. So, Grant, to your point, I hope that they put something together that's sort of segmented for the hardcore folks, whether it be invite only or something of that nature, to actually allow that to flourish. But I do think you're right in that it needs to have business taking place in order to actually be successful. And if you invite in all kinds of people, then you might not necessarily get that. So you have to play that balance.
Before COVID, like they had talked about too, because I think they got the feedback pretty bluntly and directly from like industry folks that like it's not that we don't want consumers there, right? Like all of our businesses like rely on having consumers who care about the industry. Like we all want them there. We just don't want them all there at the same time, like all the time, right? Like there's ways where you can have like maybe Fridays like closed, and then like Saturday and Sunday it opens up. Maybe it's like 10 a.m. to 12 is closed, and then it opens up in the afternoon. Like there's like a million ways to kind of fix that issue. So yeah, I'm like totally down as long as there's actually like a plan, for like kind of how you would like structure it. But yeah, it's gonna be weird. no matter what happens. I mean, I just feel like this also just could be one of those situations where like E3 comes back in 2023, and even like BlizzCon coming back in 2023, like it's just gonna be weird. It's just like, what does it look like? Like, I feel like people are
the shortest conference ever. We've made no games this year, guys. All right, everyone, go back to what you were doing. How's everyone loving Diablo Immortal?
I think BlizzCon's kind of dead. I mean,
they said they're bringing it back. They're committed, Jeff. They're committed.
You have to make new games to have a BlizzCon.
I mean, that's completely my tinfoil hat or whatever. I just don't. I think it was hard to have a conference just based on one company's games to begin with. I mean, they have a rabid fan base clearly, but at a certain point when you make like 1 or 2 games, it's not even a conference. It's just like it's one game. It's like basically just bringing the fans of one game together. Which, okay, cool. I guess there are some games that are big enough to do that, but yeah, I think
World of Warcraft is like, it was a phenomenon, right? Like,
yes,
there was enough there to have World of Warcraft.
I'm bullish on E3. I think E3 will, again, we don't know the economics of it. Who knows if it makes money or not. I think people will be, by this time next year, I think people will be very excited to get to a conference. Like every conference I've gone to the last 6 months, like people have been so happy to be there, and it's like, oh, this is great. Like I'm traveling again, I'm seeing people. Like I think it'll be good.